So on that theme of recognizing that there are differences across different companies in an industry and that you can't directly compare different industries, you talked about the S&P 500 ESG. Can you talk about how that is designed, how you manage that tilt from the main S&P 500 benchmark, maybe a little bit about how you think about ratings and how you use that in this indexing design?
Sure. So with the S&P 500 ESG, we're taking all the companies in the S&P 500 and we are ranking them by their ESG score within their industry groups. And then we're selecting them from the top down until we reach approximately 75% of the market cap of the original industry group. So again, this gives us a very balanced portfolio across industry groups and therefore also across sectors. There are some companies that we do exclude as a matter of course, that we've received feedback from sustainable investors that they would like to have removed from the portfolio. So companies that are involved in a meaningful way in thermal coal, in production of controversial weapons, in production or sale of tobacco, also companies that are in violation of the UN Global Compact. But we end up making those base exclusions and then doing that ranking and that selection. But the aim here, again, is not necessarily to come out with a very, very narrow portfolio, but to have a more broad portfolio that is more benchmark-like. In terms of thinking about the different ESG rating approaches, our approach is to engage with companies through our corporate sustainability assessment and to take as much information as we can. There's many ways to think about ESG, but one of the most simple ways is just to think of applying more data to the investment process. And ESG has greatly, greatly expanded the amount of data that is applied to the investment process. As I mentioned, 600 to 1,000 data points we collect from companies. This is on top of the typical financial statements and everything that investors typically use. So with this huge amount of data, this gives us a view into a company's sustainability and allows us to do those rankings and to figure out whether they should be in indices like the S&P 500 ESG.
And on that point around ratings, one of the concerns that sometimes raised by companies, by issuers, and by investors is we're entering a world where there is so much data, and it's great that this is being used, but these ratings across the ESG space from different firms can sometimes be quite different, no doubt driven by different approaches and methodology or priorities. Some people are saying it'd be really helpful to get convergence and align, much like credit ratings have. Others go that this is an opportunity to understand what's important to different investors from an ESG perspective. How do you guys think about that?
Our view is that there will be some convergence, most definitely, as the market starts to really hone in on what is material as you look industry by industry and look at individual companies. That said, there will be a limit to that convergence, and we think it's appropriate that there be some differentiation. The market is served well by having different views of a company from different ESG ratings companies. And so, our unique value add to the market is that S&P Global is incredibly connected with companies, and specifically through our corporate sustainability assessment. That makes us very unique, where most ratings companies actually just take information from the public domain, from sustainability reports, from annual reports. We engage directly with companies and ask them really tough questions and really drive them to disclose more information into the market. But to the degree that they're not ready to disclose, they may disclose some information to us, which we then grade and rate and give the market a view where they may not have all the granular information. They may have a lot of the granular information, but that extra view or that grade, that rating, allows the market to understand a company's sustainability performance much better. So I think that our rating will always be somewhat differentiated from the other ones that you see on the market that are only relying upon what they find, say, on a company's website.
Look, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this evolves, and I think we're all learning and recognizing that the methodology is developing. Let me finally ask you, we spend a lot of time talking about companies and making assessments around companies. How do you think about alternatives from an ESG perspective and indexing alternatives with an ESG tilt?
Sure. So this is an area that is really emerging and we think is going to gain momentum in the next few years. It's an area that we're very active on. So yeah, with a company, you're approaching the company, you're gathering all the information that they would provide. When you're looking at commodities or real estate, the analysis is much different. So with commodities, we're undertaking what we call life cycle analysis, looking at how the commodity is sourced, refined, tracking it ultimately to the point that it is sold, and looking at the environmental impact all through that process, the water usage, the greenhouse gas emissions, other areas that would have impact on the environment or may have a social impact as well. So we are undertaking that analysis, and we are going to have some exciting new indices and products in the future coming out focused on these areas. But it's definitely the case that that ESG is not just the area of public companies anymore. It is commodities, real estate, a lot of activity in private markets, and all of these, leading the way for more investment where there is that information that informs the investment process, so that sustainability is, again, not sort of an afterthought, but is at the center of the investment decision.
It does feel like we are still in the relatively early days of this journey, and there's a lot more to come, and we look forward to seeing that in due course. Reid, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much, Terry. It's great to be with you.